Deep in the heart of the Ozark Mountains, whispers of the Ozark Howler have echoed through generations, a creature steeped in local lore and cloaked in mystery. The origins of this legendary beast are as tangled as the roots of the ancient trees that rise majestically from the forest floor. Some say it was born from the folklore of early settlers who sought to explain the unexplained, while others believe it is a manifestation of nature's wild spirit, embodying the untamed wilderness that surrounds them. The howler is often described as a fearsome creature, resembling a large wolf but with features that seem almost otherworldly. Its piercing eyes glow like embers in the dark, and its coat is said to shimmer with shades of midnight, blending seamlessly into the nocturnal landscape. Yet, it is the howl that strikes terror into the hearts of those who dare to listen, a haunting sound that reverberates through the hills, echoing like a mournful song sung by lost souls. Some believe it is a warning to any who intrude upon its territory, others interpret it as a call to those who have strayed too far into the woods. As tales of its ferocity spread, communities grew divided between skepticism and belief. To some residents, the howler is merely a figment of imagination, an overblown story told around campfires to frighten children or entertain friends on chilly nights. Others, however, remain steadfast in their conviction, recounting chilling encounters that send shivers down their spines. They speak of livestock found torn apart without a trace and shadows flitting through moonlit glades. The legend has taken root deep within the local psyche. It serves as both cautionary tale and haunting reminder of what lurks beyond civilization's reach. Tonight, with wind whispering through the trees and darkness enveloping their homes, even the most hardened skeptics can feel a tremor of unease. The howler has transcended myth, slipping from the pages of old stories into reality. As its eerie howl breaks through silence like thunder on a clear day, every resident realizes that this time they can no longer hide behind disbelief. It has come for them more than just a tale, it stands at their door. Nestled in a secluded corner of the Ozark Mountains, the small community of Cedar Hollow seemed to exist in a world untouched by time. Majestic hills rolled towards the horizon, their dense canopies dappled with sunlight filtering through leaves, creating a kaleidoscope of green. The air was fragrant with the scent of pine and earth, a serene backdrop that betrayed the underlying tension simmering among the townsfolk. This rural setting, with its winding dirt roads and quaint wooden houses, thrived on isolation. Neighbors greeted each other with hearty waves and lingering conversations on front porches, where stories mingled with the sounds of nature, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, and the distant calls of birds. Here, life moved at a gentle pace, framed by the natural beauty that surrounded them. Yet beneath this picturesque veneer lay an unsettling current of fear driven by the ominous legend of the Ozark Howler. As twilight descended, painting the sky with deep purples and indigos, an unsettling silence would fall across Cedar Hollow. Residents began to lock their doors earlier, glancing over their shoulders as they ventured outside to let their dogs out or collect firewood. The vibrant landscape felt more menacing under the cloak of darkness. It transformed into an alien world where shadows danced just beyond sight. The isolation that once offered comfort now turned into a breeding ground for paranoia. Residents exchanged furtive glances as they gathered in small groups to discuss recent events, bizarre animal carcasses found torn apart at dawn, chilling howls echoing through the night that left even the most courageous feeling uneasy. Some believed they had seen eyes glowing like lanterns in the woods, sending shivers down their spines. Every rustle in the underbrush became amplified by their imaginations, turning ordinary sounds into ominous warnings. The howler was no longer just a fable shared at summer gatherings, it felt real and present, lurking just beyond the tree line. The beautiful landscape that once inspired awe now seemed to cloak a predator, a reminder that nature's wildness was both breathtaking and terrifying, leaving Cedar Hollow on high alert as night began to fall. As the moon cast an eerie glow over Cedar Hollow, the fear of the Ozark Howler gripped the town with increasing intensity. What had once been dismissed as folklore was now a growing concern, with residents recounting recent sightings that left them rattled and on edge. Whispers of encounters spread like wildfire, each tale more chilling than the last, igniting a collective anxiety that refused to dissipate. Last week, old Mr. Jenkins, known for his stoic demeanor and love of late-night fishing, returned home pale and shaken. He claimed he had heard the unmistakable howl echoing through the trees while he was at the river. To him, it sounded like a warning, a cry of something ancient and primal. The next morning, he found the remains of a deer, its body stripped clean near the water's edge, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching him from the shadows. Families began to huddle closer together at night, sharing stories around flickering campfires, and children were warned to stay close to home as dusk approached. Parents whispered of sightings in hushed tones, recalling how several dogs had gone missing recently. Each disappearance heightened their fears, leading them to believe that the howler was not only a myth but a very real threat stalking their beloved woods. Meanwhile, the local sheriff, usually a figure of authority and calm, found himself drawn into the web of anxiety. His office was inundated with calls from frantic residents claiming to have seen glowing eyes lurking in their backyards. They described sounds that shattered the usual tranquility of the night, long, mournful howls that echoed through the hills like a dark melody. The townsfolk's fear manifested in tangible ways. They fortified their homes with new locks, illuminated their yards with bright lights, and formed small groups to venture out together after sunset. Even the children felt the weight of the atmosphere, their laughter faded into whispers, their games abandoned for the safety of home. As each day passed, it became clearer that the howler was no longer just an old wives' tale. It was an ominous presence looming over Cedar Hollow, transforming life in this quiet community into a constant state of vigilance and dread. With every howl echoing through the hills, they were reminded that something dark had settled upon their town, more than just a myth now standing at their threshold. In the midst of Cedar Hollow's rising tension, three key figures emerge, each representing a different perspective on the howler and the threat it poses. First is Clara Matthews, a determined journalist from a larger city who has come to Cedar Hollow to cover local folklore for a feature piece. With her notebook in hand and a skeptical mindset, she is driven by the desire to uncover truth from myth. Clara views the howler as nothing more than a manifestation of fear fueled by superstition. She interviews residents, collecting their stories while intent on exposing what she believes are exaggerated tales that have spiraled out of control. However, as she dives deeper into the community's psyche, Clara begins to question her own preconceived notions. Contrasting her skepticism is Hank Reynolds, a lifelong resident whose unwavering belief in the howler's existence stems from personal experience. Growing up in Cedar Hollow, Hank has heard the stories passed down through generations, but it wasn't until he had his own chilling encounter with the creature that his convictions solidified. An avid outdoorsman, he spends his nights tracking local wildlife and insists that the strange happenings, the vanished pets, and eerie howls are connected to something far more sinister than just coincidence. Hank feels a sense of responsibility to protect both his family and friends and is increasingly vocal about taking action against what he believes is an imminent threat. Then there's the Carter family, who live on the outskirts of town near dense woods where many sightings have been reported. The parents, Lisa and Tom Carter, are struggling with growing anxiety after their beloved dog, Max, went missing last week under mysterious circumstances. Their two children, Emily and Jake, once filled with laughter and adventure in their expansive backyard, now peek out from behind closed curtains, jumpy at every sound. Lisa does her best to keep the normalcy alive for her children while Tom grapples with mounting fear for their safety. As these three paths converge amid rising tensions in Cedar Hollow, Clara's pursuit of truth will clash with Hank's fervent beliefs, while the Carter family's struggle for safety highlights the palpable stakes involved. Together they must confront not only the legend of the Ozark Howler but also their own fears as they determine whether this creature is a spectral apparition or a real predator lurking in their midst. Just as the tension in Cedar Hollow reached a fever pitch, an event shook the community to its core and propelled the protagonists into action. The Carter family was preparing for a quiet evening when they heard frantic barking echoing from their backyard, followed by an ear-splitting howl that sent shivers down their spines. The family's remaining dog, a nervous golden retriever named Daisy, was racing around in circles, her body tense with fear. Tom Carter rushed outside to investigate, flashlight in hand, while Lisa attempted to calm the children inside. As Tom stepped into the twilight, the significant shift in atmosphere enveloped him. A dense fog rolled in from the woods, creeping along the ground like a living entity. He called out for Daisy but was met with only silence, interrupted by occasional rustling from the underbrush. His pulse quickened as he recalled all the stories of pets going missing. Meanwhile, Clara Matthews was near her car parked just down the road when she heard the commotion from the Carter household. Intrigued and determined to uncover more about the town's fears, she instinctively stepped toward their property. Just as she arrived at their gate, she caught sight of something unnatural, a pair of glowing eyes reflecting back at her from within the trees. Terrified but compelled to find answers, Clara instinctively reached for her camera while trying to steady her breath. Hank Reynolds had been out searching that night as well, drawn by the rumors of a howler sighting reported earlier that evening. Hearing Daisy's barking and Tom's rising shouts added urgency to his mission. He sprinted towards their home just as Clara focused on that haunting glow. All at once, a low growl emanated from deep within the shadows of the trees, a sound unlike any other creature they'd heard before. The hair on Hank's neck stood up as he recognized it instantly. They were not merely sharing tales anymore, something malevolent was lurking nearby. The presence of fear became palpable among them, three people united by curiosity, desperation, and dread. As they gathered together outside the Carter residence, what had begun as individual trepidation morphed into collective resolve. Would they allow fear to dictate their lives any longer? With hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through their veins, they stepped forward together into the unknown, a confrontation with what might very well be the Ozark Howler waiting just beyond the tree line. The next morning, with the sun's light pushing back the shadows of the night, Clara, Hank, and Tom gathered at a local diner to discuss their terrifying encounter. Over steaming cups of coffee, they exchanged theories but realized they needed more information to better understand the Howler and its connection to Cedar Hollow. Determined to investigate further, they decided to visit some of the town's longtime residents to delve deeper into local lore. Their first stop was at the home of Old May, an enigmatic woman known for her extensive knowledge of Ozark myths. With her silver hair and deep-set eyes that seemed to hold countless secrets, she welcomed them into her cluttered living room filled with dusty books and faded photographs. As they sat down, Clara introduced their inquiry into the Howler. Old May listened intently before launching into a series of tales, some about dark creatures in the woods inclined to hunt during certain lunar phases, others recounting encounters that deeply affected those who lived close to nature. Fear, she emphasized slowly, is a powerful thing, adding that it often shapes how a community responds to legends and the unknown. Her eyes twinkled as she recalled the first time people spoke of the Howler. It was born from loss, a grief-stricken response to vanished livestock and missing children that fed their belief in something sinister lurking just out of sight. Buoyed by Old May's stories, Clara began documenting anything she could find, questioning townsfolk about their own encounters or what they'd heard. Each account came wrapped in a shroud of fear and reverence. Eyewitnesses claimed shadows moving through trees or glimpses of glowing eyes at dusk. Some had experienced bone-chilling howls close enough to feel them resonate in their chests. While Hank absorbed this knowledge with a growing sense of urgency, he began talking to hunters and campers who had encountered something unnatural during their trips into the wild, entities they could only describe as predators watching them from afar. Tom shared his own apprehensions, suggesting that each tale was part of a larger web connecting their fear with ancient instincts passed through generations. As they pieced together the threads woven into Cedar Hollow's fabric, an unsettling realization took shape. The Howler wasn't just a mere myth living on folklore, it had become solidified through collective trauma. A warning etched no longer in whispers but palpable dread. With newfound determination, they understood their mission was not just about confronting a creature, it was about facing a deeply ingrained fear that had rooted itself within the very hearts of their community. As dusk fell over Cedar Hollow, an oppressive stillness settled upon the woods, transforming the familiar landscape into an alien world filled with hidden dangers. Clara, Hank, and Tom equipped themselves with flashlights and determination as they prepared to venture deeper into the ominous forest where they felt the weight of the community's fears pressing against them. With each step, the trees loomed closer, their twisted branches reaching like skeletal fingers towards the sky. The trio walked in tense silence, save for the crunch of leaves underfoot that felt all too loud against the backdrop of encroaching darkness. As they pushed farther from civilization, the air grew heavy with expectation, threading through the silence with a palpable thread of anxiety. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the trees, a sound so close that their hearts nearly stopped. The three paused, breath held in their throats, straining to decipher what lay beyond the halo of their flashlight beams. The forest responded grimly, an unnatural stillness enveloped them as if all life had taken a collective breath, waiting for something unseen. Then came the howling, deep and resonant, reverberating through the night like a dark melody. Clara's pulse quickened, it felt like an invitation mingled with a threat. While she had come seeking evidence to dismantle the myth, she now felt an undeniable urge to retreat. Beside her, Hank's expression shifted from curiosity to fear as he exchanged glances with Tom, whose eyes mirrored the same apprehension. Another sound pierced the night. Low growls seemed to emerge from various points around them, like a chorus of shadows closing in. Each noise sharpened their senses and amplified their paranoia, awakening primal instincts they thought long buried. For Tom, it was the unmistakable roar of protective instincts rising within him. For Clara, it became an inner battle between skepticism and fear. With each unsettling noise, visions of stories shared by Old May bubbled up, tales of hunters who ventured into these woods never to return or who returned forever changed by what they had encountered. As if sensing their agitation, the woods seemed alive with whispers, rustling leaves hinting at movement just beyond their sight. "Did you hear that?" Clara murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Hank nodded cautiously, clutching his flashlight tighter as shadows danced wickedly just outside their reach. Compelled by their shared fear but driven by a relentless need for answers, they pressed forward in trembling solidarity. Whatever lay ahead in those darkened depths would force them to confront not only the legend of the Ozark Howler but their own deepest fears shadowing their every move. Stepping deeper into the haunting unknown, they held onto each other tightly as if grounding themselves against an invisible force determined to unravel their very sanity. The air grew thick with tension as Clara, Hank, and Tom ventured deeper into the heart of the woods, guided only by the narrow beam of their flashlights and the haunting echoes of their fears. With each cautious step, they felt the boundary between myth and reality blurring, uncertainty clawing at their resolve. Just as doubt began to creep in, a low growl resonated through the trees, sending chills racing down their spines. "Did you hear that?" Tom whispered, his voice trembling. The sound was close, too close. It reverberated around them like a dark promise fulfilled. They exchanged fearful glances but pressed on, driven by a mix of dread and determination. Then, in an instant that felt like both a lifetime and a heartbeat, they came upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center stood the figure they had only ever heard about, an imposing creature with matted fur glistening like obsidian under the stars. Its eyes pierced through the darkness, glowing with an uncanny intelligence that sent shockwaves of terror through their hearts. The Ozark Howler loomed large before them, every sinewy muscle tensed and ready. It let out a howl that resonated deep within their chests, a mournful sound that seemed to echo with centuries of sorrow and rage. Clara's skepticism was shattered. She was face to face with the very embodiment of fear that had haunted Cedar Hollow for generations. Hank instinctively moved forward, propelled by a mix of fearlessness and a fierce need to protect his friends. "Stay back," he yelled, raising his flashlight high as if it could ward off the creature. But his voice trembled with uncertainty, blending into the surrounding stillness. Tom's protective instincts surged as he stepped closer to Clara, shielding her from view. The Howler's gaze shifted between them, assessing its audience as if weighing their worth. In that moment of confrontation, all caution fell away. They were no longer merely seekers of truth but an unwilling audience thrust into an ancient tale of survival. As silence enveloped them once more, they realized this was not just an encounter with a fabled beast, it was a confrontation with their own fears, the fear of losing loved ones, the fear of the unknown, and the fear embedded within the legends that shaped their lives. With hearts pounding and breaths held tight in their throats, they understood that this moment would forever alter their perception, not just of the Howler but of courage itself. In facing this primal reality together, they found strength in vulnerability and connection in shared terror as they prepared to confront whatever fate awaited them in this haunting encounter beneath the moonlit sky. In the aftermath of their harrowing encounter with the Ozark Howler, Clara, Hank, and Tom found themselves at a crossroads, each forever changed by what they had faced in the dark woods. The palpable fear that had gripped Cedar Hollow shifted to a new reality as they navigated feelings of liberation and dread intertwined within their personal reflections. Clara emerged from the experience with a newfound respect for the stories woven into the fabric of the community. No longer merely a journalist seeking to debunk myths, she embraced her role as a storyteller, a custodian of the narratives that shaped not just people's beliefs but their collective identity. In recovering those truths, she recognized the power of belief in offering hope and resilience amidst uncertainty. Hank stood resolute, his conviction bolstered by what he had witnessed. The Howler had confirmed everything he feared, yet also had given him clarity on what it meant to protect his community. He began sharing his own stories of fear and solace with those who would listen, emphasizing how acknowledging these shared experiences could extract strength from vulnerability. With passion ignited in his heart, Hank organized community gatherings where residents came to share their fears and legends, binding them together in courage. Tom's transformation was subtler yet no less profound. The rawness of their encounter challenged him to confront his insecurities as a father and protector. He understood that true courage wasn't merely about facing physical threats but also about cultivating a sense of safety within his family, teaching his children that fears could be companions on their journeys rather than intimidating foes. Tom began taking walks with them through nature, inviting conversations about bravery and confronting shadows, not just those lurking in dark corners but those residing within each heartbeat. The bond formed between Clara, Hank, and Tom deepened as they continued navigating fears collectively, transforming what once felt isolating into camaraderie forged in shared experience. Their discussions blossomed during long nights around campfires under starlit skies, laughter mingling with tales of tension revealed an unmistakable truth. Fear might always linger like fog after a rainstorm, but together they could face anything. As Cedar Hollow reclaimed its tranquility amidst whispers of legends and long-held beliefs about the Howler, it grew stronger, not just through vigilant protection but through fostering understanding and solidarity among its people. They realized that legends served not merely as cautionary tales but as bonds defining their existence. Opening themselves to these narratives forged deeper ties among individuals who now faced life armed with both courage and connection. In this unity lay their true strength, the belief that no creature was mightier than the heartbeats shared between friends and neighbors. As life in Cedar Hollow began to return to a semblance of normalcy, the legacy of the Ozark Howler lingered in the air, leaving behind a complex tapestry woven from fear, belief, and community bonds. The creature that once loomed large as a figure of dread had now transformed into something more nuanced, a symbol representing both the shadows of their past and the strength found in unity. Legends have a profound ability to shape communities, acting as a mirror reflecting their shared anxieties and hopes. For the residents of Cedar Hollow, the Howler served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the delicate balance between nature and humanity. The whispers of the creature became intertwined with the everyday lives of the townsfolk, binding them together through stories passed down through generations. Stories that once inspired fear now fostered resilience. Clara, Hank, and Tom understood that myths serve dual purposes. They can be warnings meant to guide behavior but also tales that nurture cultural identity. As they sat around campfires sharing their experiences, they recognized how the legend of the Howler had once fed their paranoia but now offered them a sense of solidarity. The fear that had gripped them became a catalyst for community engagement, prompting gatherings where stories were exchanged and fears confronted collectively. Yet, as they reflected on their encounter, a lingering question remained: what is real? The line between myth and reality had blurred in ways they could not ignore. Was the Howler merely a figment of imagination or a manifestation of deeper truths about their environment? In facing their fears, Clara, Hank, and Tom realized that sometimes the legends we inherit are meant to provoke introspection, pushing communities to grapple with their vulnerabilities. As Cedar Hollow continued to heal from the shadows cast by their legendary creature, its residents chose to embrace their fears rather than hide from them. They acknowledged that fear itself can be a powerful teacher, guiding them to recognize their strength in vulnerability and connection. In this way, the Ozark Howler transcended its role as a simple myth. It became a testament to their shared humanity, a reminder that confronting darkness could lead to light and understanding. Ultimately, Cedar Hollow's legacy became one of courage born from vulnerability. As stories of the Howler echoed through the streets, they served to remind both old and young that while myths might haunt our dreams, they can also illuminate our realities, prompting reflection not just on what lies in the shadows but also on what lies within. Whether warning or wisdom, every legend carries the possibility of transformation, shaping not only individuals but entire communities as they navigate through life's uncertainties together.